The Holy Roman Empire is also very different from its Western neighbors. For one thing, it's complicated. Remember, it starts out as a hereditary monarchy under Charlemagne according to Salic law's old interpretation. In other words, the old interpretation was all sons get a share in their father's holdings. Now, Charlemagne only had one son, but he had three grandsons. So when his son died, Louis the Pious, in 843, his three grandsons, Charlemagne's three grandsons, had to split the realm into three pieces at the Treaty of Verdun in 843. Now, the imperial title went to the middle part, the part that includes northern Italy, to directly protect the Pope, so it got the Holy Roman Empire title. But eventually, that kingdom completely disappeared in 924, so there ended up only being two kingdoms, the Western Kingdom of the Franks and the Eastern Kingdom of the Franks, what we would call today basically Germany. They even started to speak different languages. The Western Kingdom of the Franks stuck to Latin, which eventually became French, whereas the Eastern Kingdom of the Franks stuck to their Frankish, which eventually became German. Meanwhile, that Eastern Kingdom of the Germans, of the Franks in Germany, that line only lasts until 911 AD. The last Carolingian king died in 911 AD. So then they had to figure out, well, what are we going to do? Now that Charlemagne's progeny is gone, who do we do? Well, they couldn't really agree, so they start a new system. The nobles of Germany get together at the death of every king, and they elect their own king of the Germans. They didn't call it the king of the Germans. They called it king of the Romans, because, again, they see themselves as the Roman Empire. But we tend to call it the king of the Germans. Now, in 962 AD, Pope John XII crowned the German king of the time, Otto I, as Emperor of the Romans. He basically repeats the 800 event, crowning Charlemagne. Now he crowns Otto I, but this Otto I is the king of the Germans. It was in recognition mainly of his pacification of the Magyars, who were pretty much a terror before they were pacified by Otto at the Battle of Lechfeld. Thus, the king of the Germans now becomes basically identified with the Holy Roman Empire. Thus, the noble process was this. The German nobles elected their king, and then the Pope, for the most part, crowned him as emperor. Now, this takes another step in the year 1356 with the Golden Bull. The Golden Bull, just give me a second. No, not that kind of bull. A bull in the sense of leaden seal, but this one was a golden seal, a seal that actually seals the document. That's what we mean by Golden Bull. This Golden Bull decided that from now on, 7 electors in particular would be the 7 that would always elect, not the emperor. Here it says the emperor. Sorry, that's a mistake. It really should say the king of the Germans. These 7 electors from now on would be the Archbishop of Cologne, the Archbishop of Mainz, the Archbishop of Trier, the King of Bohemia, the Duke of Saxony, the Margrave of Brandenburg, and the Count of the Rhine-Palatinate. You can see their basic lands right here. Brandenburg, Saxony, Bohemia, the Palatine, Mainz's lands, Cologne, and Trier. So you get the idea. These would be the ones. These prince electors now became very powerful. I should mention briefly that this did cause a bit of dissension because all the other nobles are now wondering why they're slighted. So it does cause a little bad blood. Nevertheless, they become extremely powerful. Even though they in theory could elect anyone, they often stuck to the Habsburgs ever since the fall of the Hohenstaufens, that is Frederick II, the most powerful Holy Roman Emperor ever. After that, the German nobles don't really like powerful Holy Roman Emperors, so they stick to the Habsburgs. At the time, it seemed like a good idea. So they almost always pick Habsburgs. There's only a couple exceptions in history. But here's the one thing they did do. They often negotiated the conditions for their election before the election itself. So they say, hey, what will you give us if we elect you? And then each time they actually elect a Holy Roman Emperor, they rewrite contracts with the Holy Roman Emperor, spelling out their own powers and liberties. In other words, Germany is not one. It's really just a collection, a bare federation, where the Holy Roman Empire pretty much successively loses power with almost every election. But the one who's gaining the power are the prince electors. The prince elector becomes a very coveted position.